First Education. We're going to try and do these one a month if we can. We're going to get through all our grantees over time, and then we'll hope to have other guests join us as well. Before we get started, on Monday we're having a Twitter chat also with Austin. So join us at 2 p.m. Eastern on Monday the 28th to heckle Austin with your questions about sharks and his research. And a few other things. We've just launched our new website, so I'm sure most of you have seen it. If not, go to oceanfirsteducation.com and check out our new layout. And finally, if you're not already, please find us on all our social media accounts at Ocean First Education. And my colleague is just telling me a few things that's quite funny. Okay, Cathy, you can stop talking. All right, so let me introduce you to Dr. Austin Gallagher. Austin Gallagher is a shark researcher, but also interested in predators in general, and you can find him at the handle @PredatorScience on most social media accounts. We're really fortunate to have him today because he is a highly sought after man. He was a recent Forbes 30 under 30 listee for science, and while there's 30 of them, in previous years there have been no conservation biologists that have ever been listed. So it's usually a field dominated by neurophysiologists, astrophysics, chemists, and medicine, and Austin's the first one to join that list as a conservation biologist. So, and it's not unlikely that he would have got this because at being under 30 and already having around 30 publications under his belt, he's certainly streaming ahead of the field. But today we're here to talk about sharks and their importance in our marine ecosystem. So let's get started. How are you, Austin?
Good, Caine. Thanks a lot for having me, and really excited to talk to you guys and everybody who's tuning in. Welcome.
Yeah, this is great, man. I understand you've just been to Panama and got back from there as well.
Yeah, that's right. Just getting back from about 2 months in Panama where I was doing research on reef fish with Smithsonian. Not a shark project, but this is a nice segue for me to get back into the sharky mindset.
Great. Excellent. And so today we're going to talk about sharks, and we helped you out with some stuff in Japan, right? You're going to touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, I'll touch briefly on that. Yeah, so Ocean First Education was really amazing to support some of my work in Japan, doing some shark tagging work in Asia, and I will touch on that a little bit today. And I'm going to give kind of a broad overview of some of the observations and really cool findings that myself and my colleagues have made over the years regarding shark science.
Excellent, man. Well, I'll let you have the floor.
Perfect. All right, guys, welcome. Again, thanks for that great intro, Caine. This is extremely exciting for me. Technology never ceases to amaze me. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about some of the work that I've been doing over the years on sharks. And it's really kind of going to come at you in terms of field notes that I've made over the years on our planet's most iconic predator. And just to predate all of the work that I'm going to talk about, there's just a little bit of a timeline I want to share with you of where I've come from and who I am today. And like a lot of us who are probably tuned into this chat right now, I started out with my hand glued to the wall at the aquarium looking at these amazing predators. And over time, I realized that I needed to don certain equipment to get closer to them, you know, evolving from Halloween costumes to the real deal. Learning how to scuba dive, and over time, you know, my persistence paid off, and I've been extremely fortunate to work on some of the most incredible animals on this planet that are sharks. And you can see that one animal on the right there. That's a bull shark, maybe one of the biggest bull sharks ever seen by scientists that we sampled in the Florida Keys several years ago. And today, a large part of my job is dedicated to understanding these animals. And I'm going to go over a variety of tools that we use, ranging from blood work to ultrasounds and even tagging, like I'm doing in this picture here, which is tagging a great hammerhead shark, which I did during my Ph.D. in the Florida Keys. And also, like Caine, I'm a big, avid underwater enthusiast, and it's also really important to spend time with the animals. And this is a tiger shark with myself next to it in the Bahamas that I've been working at for 4 or 5 years. And it's really given me some incredible perspectives on these animals that I would not otherwise be able to have. So just a really broad overview, sharks are extremely ancient animals. They've been on this planet for millions of years, up to 400 million years. There's 400 to 500 species, and species are being discovered all the time. Every few weeks, on average, a new species is discovered. And a lot of those species are being found in places like the deep sea. They are found worldwide in all oceans, ranging from the warm tropics to the cold polar regions. They're extremely slow growing. Sharks take a long time to reach sexual maturity, which is why they're actually so vulnerable. And this picture on the right shows just that. You know, one of the greatest threats facing sharks is shark finning, and this is a picture of a hammerhead shark that had its fin removed. A really broad overview of the status of sharks. I don't know if anybody here knows, but sharks are incredibly threatened. The statistic that you should know, kind of summarizing from this slide, is really off the east coast of the United States, off the eastern seaboard, up to 90% or more declines in large sharks. So large sharks in the last 50 years have declined up to 90%. That's insane statistic if you think about it. In the Mediterranean Sea, you know, large sharks are virtually absent, virtually extinct. And these figures here from these two papers show decreasing trends. So over the last 30, 20 years, the status for sharks is not looking good. And this is a really big issue for conservation biologists like myself, because predators are really important for our planet. And this panel on the right shows it perfectly. And these are a number of different predators: otters, sea stars, but also sharks. And the column on the left shows an ecosystem when there are no predators, no sharks, no fish. And the column on the right is the exact same ecosystem with predators. And what you can see here is the column on the right looks a lot healthier, looks a lot better. Sharks are incredibly important because they are top predators. They control food webs. And without them, our planet is in serious trouble. Like I said earlier, the main reason for this decline in sharks is overfishing. And overfishing is primarily being driven by the shark fin industry. And I want you guys to just focus on the stuff I have on the bottom here. This is what shark fin soup looks like. It's worth a lot of money in places like Asia. And it's been estimated that up to 100 million sharks a year are killed for their fins. That's an insane amount. So that's really what's driving a lot of these population declines for animals. So as scientists, we're really interested in trying to reverse this. We want to collect data that will not only advance our understanding of these incredible animals, but we also need to collect this data so we can protect them. And for me, it really comes down to three things. I call this the Holy Trinity. It's really about learning what they eat, learning how they move, and learning how they reproduce. So today I'm going to give you a really quick tour of some of these things, some really cool findings that myself and my team have found, and how we're using these information to protect these amazing species. Eating is, without a doubt, the most famous trait of sharks. As you can see, this great white shark breaching in South Africa on a seal. And this is probably the most famous example people think about when they think about sharks being predators, is South Africa, where you have these large rookeries of seals. And it is absolutely the most spectacular display, in my opinion, of nature, seeing this 4,000-pound animal launch itself out of the water to eat seals. But sharks, like great whites, also do some other really interesting things. So working with my colleagues in South Africa, we actually determined that scavenging, so not feeding on live animals, but scavenging on dead carcasses, is really important for great whites. And this is some work myself and my colleagues in South Africa showing that this is a dead whale, and these are various great white sharks chomping at the bit into these great whites to basically take advantage of this pulse of food. And one statistic that is just unbelievable, on one carcass, one whale carcass in South Africa, we saw 40 great white sharks. That's unbelievable. That's an unbelievable amount of biomass of predators. I love this picture on the top because it almost looks like a puppy dog. What this shark is, that's eating the fluke of the whale. And sharks are really smart. On the bottom panel here, you can see this great white actually going into the reproductive tract of a dead whale and actually removing a full-term fetus from that dead whale. So these animals are strategic. They've been doing this stuff for millions of years. We're trying to play catch up, and along the way, we're learning some pretty amazing stuff. Another species that is really famous for their diet is the tiger shark, and this is a photo that I made in the Bahamas at a place called Tiger Beach that I'll take you to in a little bit. Tiger sharks are much more broad in their diet. They're not as specific as great whites. They eat anything from fish to reptiles, mammals, birds, crustaceans, even non-organic items. They're famous for preying on these baby albatross in the northwest Hawaiian Islands. Again, whales. This is ringing the dinner bell for large sharks. These are tiger sharks off Hawaii preying on a dying humpback whale. But myself and my colleagues have seen some pretty cool stuff from tiger sharks. Sometimes when you catch a shark, which is what we do to sample them, sometimes they throw up. This is a response that they have to try to deal with, you know, the stress of being captured. And one time we actually saw a tiger shark vomit up all of these bird feathers. And we actually linked it to a recent die-off of over 400 birds in the Florida Keys. And the bird that we found that this tiger shark puked up was actually a bird that lives in the middle of the United States, not a bird that lives on the coast. So maybe that bird flew into the ocean, got tired, but the tiger shark took advantage of that opportunity and again scavenged on that bird. And we've also seen some other pretty amazing stuff that tiger sharks have spit up on us. This is one animal in the Bahamas: stone crab claws, lobsters, feathers. You know, these animals are, they're not always as specific as you might think. They're always looking for the easiest meal they can get. So pretty amazing stuff. Moving is how animals make a living. You can't eat unless you move from point A to point B. And a lot of shark scientists are interested in trying to determine the movement patterns of sharks like this oceanic whitetip, a photo that I made in the Bahamas as well. And I've been really fortunate to track a lot of these animals, and the way that I've observed, the way that I've studied their movement ranges from simple observations, like this is me studying a male oceanic whitetip in the Bahamas, and we've been able to see these really unique swimming patterns that they do. You know, the top panel here shows that these three individuals came into a tight line and a tight formation. They're doing all these things for a reason. But much more broadly, we're interested in studying the movement of predators to look at their migration patterns. Where are these animals going to eat? Where are they going to mate? And one of the methods that we use to try and learn about the movement patterns is satellite tagging. A lot of other people are doing this. You guys have probably heard of some of the other groups that are, you know, in the press and the media, but I'm very lucky to also use this technology to understand the secret lives of sharks. In some cases, we do actually put the tags on the fins, and we do this with the animal's health in mind. And you can see this tiger shark on the bottom with what we call a spot tag, which has really been very valuable for us in tracking these animals over years once we release them. Tiger sharks have been really the bread and butter for my career so far, and this is my team and I working up a tiger shark. That's a pump in its mouth. We use the pump so they can actually breathe, and it kind of calms them down. It occupies the mouth. And over the course of 10 or 15 minutes, we can collect a ton of data on these animals. We can put a tag on them. We can take a blood sample. We can do an ultrasound, measurements. Amazing. We collect data for up to 12 projects at once. And I'm actually going to skip that slide, but show this one. And in the Bahamas, we've tagged a lot of tiger sharks. And this is basically just one plot that shows where they went. And you can see that the tiger sharks that we tagged in the Bahamas, that little white star, they spent a lot of time off Florida, South Carolina, but we saw some unbelievable movements into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And you can see all those blue and green dots out in essentially no man's land in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So we used to think tiger sharks were a coastal species, but when we started tagging them, we pretty much rejected that, and now we're interested in what the heck they're doing out in the middle of the ocean. And we think that they're actually following the Gulf Stream. So all those black points are tiger shark spots from our satellite tags, and the white bars are the Gulf Stream, which is essentially like the highway, the I-95 highway of the eastern Atlantic Ocean. Brings warm water north, and we think the animals follow that to eat food and maybe to thermoregulate, which means to regulate their temperature for really important things like giving birth and mating. Reproduction. This is the holy grail for shark scientists. In fact, this morning when I was flipping through my Facebook feed as I was waking up, I saw a video of 2 sharks mating from the Pacific Ocean. That was pretty cool. And that's a cool thing for me to see because it's so rare. You would be so surprised that there's so much attention on these animals. Shark Week, I mean, we're doing a webinar on sharks, you know, and we still don't know a lot about the reproductive activity, particularly for the large sharks. This is a tiger shark image that I made in the Bahamas, and you can see something really interesting. I want you to focus on its dorsal fin. And you can actually see that on its dorsal fin, there's a little bit of fin missing. Over the course of time, we've spent a lot of time with these animals in the water, and what we've found is that the animals are extremely aggressive when they mate, and all these scars that we see on the animals are coming from mating. This is a really significant thing for us. So we wanted to delve into this a little bit more and to look into the actual inner workings of the animal. We don't want to kill these animals, so we have to do it in a non-lethal way. Really a great way to do that is taking blood samples. Just like when you guys go to the doctor, they do a blood sample, they do an assessment of your overall health. We do that with tiger sharks, except our patients tend to be a little bit bigger. And you can see that this is actually myself taking a blood sample from the back of this tiger shark. Here's another sample, pulling some blood. Their blood is red, just like ours. And we can actually analyze that blood right on the boat. And we can look at things like pregnancy hormones. Very similar to the hormones that humans have. Sharks have similar versions of them. And we can look at how elevated or depressed those hormone levels are, which we can then use to infer whether or not they're pregnant. This is an ultrasound. So again, this is starting to probably sound a little familiar. We use an ultrasound to look inside the bellies of these animals. Is there anything inside? What do you guys think? Well, turns out that there are some amazing things happening inside these massive tiger sharks. This just gives you an idea of the scale of how big some of these animals are. This is an undergraduate that I work with, Carolyn, who is trying to find a good spot in the uterus here to use the ultrasound. Just amazing how big these animals are. It really takes a team to restrain the animal and get them on the boat. And this is what the ultrasound of a shark looks like. And I want you to look at part C. Part A and B show what's called SV. That's called the spiral valve. That's essentially the intestines of a shark. But if you look at panel C, you see 3 circular nodes. These are the cross sections of baby tiger sharks. This is amazing. So we are extremely elated and happy to basically give ourselves a pat on the back that we were right. These animals are pregnant at various times of the year at Tiger Beach. Extremely special place to be a tiger shark. Essentially what we found was a maternity ward for these huge predators. And this is from a paper we just published, and I want to orient you to what's happening here. Okay, so the different color graphs represent different stages of pregnancy. Gravid, the white, means that they're pregnant. Non-gravid, the gray, means they're not pregnant, but they're mature. So they're really big sharks, but not pregnant. And black means immature. The y-axis means percentage observed. So the bigger the bar, the more animals that are observing that trend. And we broke it down by month. So you can see there's a big seasonal difference here. In the spring and summer, Tiger Beach is dominated by black bars, immature sharks. And when that kind of segues to the fall, October, November, December, we start to see that's when all the big girls arrive. So Tiger Beach around Christmas time, it's a holiday season. There's a lot of pregnant sharks in the Bahamas, which is really cool, and that has a lot of implications for conserving those populations. And this is what a big pregnant tiger shark looks like. This is my friend Caroline, who is a 40-year-old woman. Just to give you an idea of the scale here, this is probably a 15 to 20-year-old tiger shark. Just amazing how big these are. I truly feel honored to be able to work on these animals. That kind of brings me to the last couple slides here, which focus on hammerheads. And these are some images I made in the Bahamas. Hammerheads have a really special place in my heart. They are the most fascinating shark species in my eyes. They're the most evolved group of sharks. There's 9 hammerhead species. These are great hammerheads. They're generally solitary, so you don't see them neck and neck like this, so that's why I thought this is a cool image. But hammerheads are really specialized. If you think of sharks as a type of car, tiger sharks are kind of like a minivan or a Humvee. Really big, built for crashes, they don't have all the bells and whistles. Hammerheads, they're sports cars. They're the Ferraris of the shark world. Look at that huge dorsal fin. They turn on a dime. They're extremely fast. Their physiology is completely off the charts. We're still trying to figure out what's going on with their blood because it's so different than any other species. And they have this amazing, essentially, hammer on their face, which is essentially acts as a metal detector for detecting prey like stingrays and squid. And Ocean First Education sent me and my team to Japan last year to study a distant relative, a close relative of the great hammerhead, which is called the scalped hammerhead. And what we were doing is we're actually shooting tags on the animals to track their movements. And this is a long-term study. We're really just getting to go on it. But I'm really proud to report that we were the first group to ever go to Asia to study the behavior of sharks. That's huge. The fact that we can still have firsts like that in 2016 shows you how nascent and how young this field of shark science really is. And I look forward to working with all of you guys at Ocean First to continue developing those projects. That was a really quick tour of what I've done, but I'm relatively young on the end of the scientific spectrum here, but I've learned a lot from sharks, and I've had an amazing time so far, and I've learned a lot. I've learned to trust your gut, trust your instincts, don't be afraid to make predictions. A lot of the predictions that you guys are seeing by scientists on TV, this is what we're thinking about all the time. This is what keeps us up at night. Just because you don't see something happening doesn't mean it isn't happening. So like mating, we knew that mating was happening in Tiger Beach. We never saw it, but we basically proved that it's happening by doing that blood workup, doing the ultrasounds, and doing great science really requires a big team. And I'm very fortunate to work with some of the most amazing scientists in the world, and really lucky to continue doing that work. So with that, I think I'm just around 20 minutes, and I'm going to leave you with this photo of Emma, the tiger shark, who is a very famous tiger shark found in Tiger Beach. She's 17 feet long. She's extremely fond of the camera, which is why this image is actually slightly out of focus because she came in really quick. And she has really opened my eyes to looking at these animals in a very different way. And with that, I would love to take any questions.
Hey, that was awesome. Thanks, Austin. I love the ultrasound pictures. Just look just like my daughter. Anyone want to throw out a few questions on the chat? I know Landon had a great question, and Austin, you probably get this quite a bit. But he was curious about the damage done to the shark fin, and is there any better way? And he suggested some sort of really sticky polymer. Is any innovations coming our way in terms of putting tags on sharks?
Yeah, it's a great question. We use biodegradable materials, and we actually use human-grade bolts to put the fins on. So, we've been doing this for about 8 years, and we're always refining our methods. The tags actually fall out of the shark's fin after about 2 years. And sharks have unbelievable immune systems. In fact, the fins do actually kind of like grow back over, much like a fingernail would, you know, if there's any kind of hole or pockmark. And we've actually seen that over time, that our tiger sharks do heal relatively quickly. So we're really happy that we're not having a major impact on their health.
That's great. Do you think that the immune system of the shark is maybe pushing these tags out quicker than it would in another animal?
Yep, I do. I do think that that's absolutely what's happening. I think that that's why, you know, we're always kind of in this arms race with these animals to try to figure out a way that will let us collect data for as long as possible, but also limit the, you know, impact we have on them, for sure.
Okay, there's two great questions here. Let's touch Landon's following up with infections about those. I believe there's not too much risk because it's cartilage and not a lot of blood circulation. Is that correct?
Yep, that's absolutely right. Yep.
Great. And then Mia asks, so when a fin is harvested, does it kill the shark? And this is probably the saddest thing about this industry. You want to take that, Austin?
Yeah, sure. So there's an important distinction to make. Shark finning is the process of catching a shark and taking the fin off and throwing the shark back into the ocean. I would say 99.9% of the time that shark will die. But I have actually seen some wild sharks in the Bahamas without a dorsal fin that looked fine. But of course, I mean, let's be honest, this is, you know, like removing the rudder from a sailboat. You're not going to be, you may survive, but you're not going to be able to get around as easily, and you're probably going to die. So almost certainly results in mortality for the animals. Really sad. There are a lot of protections that are being pushed around in various countries, internationally, nationally. You know, for example, off the United States, shark finning is illegal. It's been illegal since 1990 or 1995. I can't remember. But that only extends out into the exclusive economic zone of the United States. So once you get 30, 40 miles offshore, it's international waters, and anything goes. As you saw in my slides earlier, these sharks move around a lot. So they don't need passports, or they don't need to check in when they're swimming around. So in 2-3 days, these animals can transcend 3 or 4 different countries' jurisdictions. So protecting these animals is not a one-country affair. It's truly a global issue, and that's why we all need to come together and work together to save these animals.
Yeah, very true. A lot of people don't really know that the ocean's waters are designated between exclusive economic zones and then international waters, where it's almost a free-for-all. And based on your satellite tagging, we see these sharks are definitely leaving American waters and going out to the seas where there's just no policing and no ability to see what illegal fishing is doing. So the more we know, the better chance we have of protecting these animals. We have a question from Andrea down near us here in Boulder. It's one from one of the students. There's two here. The most interesting one from Kaylu. When sharks mate, do the males fight for females?
Wow, great question. Certainly they do. Yeah, so usually what will happen, this is what we know from nurse sharks and some small reef sharks. The female will sort of present itself. I'm sure that there's some type of chemical cue in the water that the sharks pick up on. And usually reef sharks are found in large numbers together, you know, loose aggregation. So it's kind of like when you go to a social event or a high school dance. There's only so many of the opposite sex, and, you know, a lot of people are sort of vying for their attention, right? So yes, they do sort of compete, and they basically compete by trying to scare each other, and sharks will definitely bite each other to try to establish a dominance, and then they'll go after the female. And, you know, one male might mate with the female, and, you know, copulation takes a few minutes maximum, and then another male could come right in and mate right on top of that. So it's not as cordial in nature as it is in our society.
Yeah, if everyone can do a Google search for that, you know, for those sharks mating, it was recently put out on Facebook. It's pretty phenomenal seeing the males trying to mate with the female, and the female definitely has some scrapes and bumps after the event. So try and find that. It's a really interesting video clip, and as Austin said, it's probably the first most well-documented mating of sharks ever. Landon asks, what is the largest group of sharks recorded?
The largest group of sharks?
Yeah, I guess, you know, how many have we seen in one thing, one hit? So I guess the hammerheads are probably the biggest schooling species, right?
That's right, Caine. Yeah, I would say that hammerheads, scalloped hammerheads can form tight aggregations up to thousands at once. And that's actually some of the work we're trying to do in Japan is to try to understand the social dynamics of why these animals are doing that. Really, really cool stuff. So yeah, I would say hammerheads are probably the ones that form the largest groups. Whale sharks also form loose aggregations around predictable feeding resources. So you may have seen these images of these huge whale sharks in Mexico in this really crystal clear blue water. They've documented up to 300, 400 whale sharks feeding within a 2 to 3 mile radius. And these animals are 40 feet long, you know, so this is the biggest fish in the ocean, and they eat plankton. So that's pretty amazing as well.
I love the vegetarian sharks. We've got 2 questions here that kind of dovetail together. How did you get interested in sharks, and advice for a young person, 11 years old, interested in going into your field? So that's kind of the same question almost. Yeah,
sure. There's no such thing as a linear path when it comes to any career, but especially for me, it's been kind of like Candyland, navigating up and down and going up and down the chutes and ladders here. But I would say, you know, I got into sharks because I've always been fascinated with predators. I've always been fascinated with animals that have to kill in order to survive. I think that's like the greatest responsibility an organism can have in nature. It's truly a regal thing, and I think as humans we've been disconnected from that concept for thousands of years. So that's probably why a lot of people don't understand predators. Anyway, I've been fascinated with that forever, so I knew that I had to do it, and I knew that I wanted to pursue my studies in it, and it was certainly not an easy thing. A lot of people are interested in these types of animals, so just tireless hard work, amazing mentors and connections over the years, and that's kind of how I got there, and you know, I'm really happy and lucky to be here. Advice for an 11-year-old, I would say, focus on math and science. Those are the 2 most important subjects that if you want to become a scientist, you need to be really good at them. There's a lot of people who are interested in studying sharks. There's a lot of people who want to study animals and become a conservation biologist, but you really do need to have strong math skills to get in the door. So I recommend working hard in those areas and trying to do some volunteering as you get older in middle school and high school.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add, Austin and I have very similar fields and similar paths, but one of the other things is also English and being able to write really well. We have to spend a lot of time requesting money, and they take a lot of work and a lot of writing. So don't forget about your ability to write. Tell a story creatively, but also tell it in a scientific manner. So expand your reading sometimes. Reading great things helps you write great things. So definitely focus on your English. We're going to wrap it up now. We've got a lot of questions here. You can also join us next Monday on the Twitter chat, which is going to be 2 p.m. Eastern, 12 lunchtime Mountain Time. And let's go. There's a great question here from Jaden, again from Andrea as the teacher. How many types of sharks have you seen? Actually, I added my shark count up the other day. I've seen 25 different species of sharks. How about you, Austin?
Wow. I'm going to do that later tonight. That's a really good exercise. I'd love to do it. I'd say I'm probably closer to 30 or 40. But you probably have a few that I don't have, so we should combine forces.
Yeah. The caveat is you've got to be in the water with them.
Got to be in the water with them, yeah. I mean, I've seen the majority of my species by fishing for them. So I've caught dusky sharks, silky sharks, you know, all these amazing makos, amazing stuff. But like Caine said, if you really want to know these animals, you got to find them on their own terms, and that involves going to see them in the water.
Yeah, for sure. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I'd like to hear, before we leave, how long is the longest known tiger shark? Okay, what do you think is the oldest the tiger shark will get, Austin? That's the last question.
Yeah, I think in the mid to high 30s. So
wow, so
pretty old.
Yeah, that's pretty old. Okay, thanks, Austin. That was amazing. Let's remember the Twitter chat if you want to get some more questions to Austin on Monday. And thanks all for joining us. We'll sign off now.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
See ya.